All right, so today we're going to be looking at some agency finances, more specifically KPIs,
Oh, yeah.
key performance indicators for agencies.
I love it, yeah.
Think of them as your agency's financial dashboard.
Yeah.
Like, are you hitting the gas? Are you slamming on the brakes? Are
Yeah.
you just coasting?
Yeah, this is good. We're going to be looking at the numbers that really matter for agencies.
Absolutely.
To not just look back, but also understand where you are now so you can make good decisions for the future.
Yeah, and that's what this source is really hitting on, this whole idea of windshield, not rear view mirror.
Yes.
Year-end reports are important, but they're only showing you where you've been.
That's right.
We got to know what's coming up ahead.
Exactly. It's about monitoring and course correcting.
Yeah. Yeah, and in today's world, you have to stay on top of those numbers.
You do?
I used to think I could just wing it, and then 1 month, bam, profit just tanked.
Yeah, you really do need to keep on top of things.
It was a wake-up call for sure.
Yeah.
But that's why these KPIs are so important. Exactly. We're going to break down the 6 key financial KPIs that agency owners should be tracking.
All right, let's jump in.
Okay.
Number 1, income or gross profit, sometimes even called gross margin.
Or sales profit.
Yeah, there are a lot of different terms.
It gets a bit confusing.
Yeah, a lot of different terms for the same thing.
Yeah.
Essentially, it's the revenue minus the direct costs.
Exactly. And breaking it down even further to existing and new business
Right.
to see where that income is coming from.
So if I'm seeing most of my income from just a handful of big clients,
Right.
maybe that's a red flag.
It could be.
Like all my eggs in one basket?
Exactly what happens if one of those big clients decides to go in a different direction.
Right.
Then your revenue would take a huge hit.
Yeah. Right.
So diversification is key.
Makes sense.
Healthy mix of clients makes for a more stable business.
All right, so we've got income covered.
Yep.
What's the next KPI we need to understand?
Next, we have costs.
All right, costs.
And just as much as we love to focus on revenue, keeping a close eye on spending is crucial. Okay, so the article we're looking at breaks it down into salary costs, overheads, and freelancer costs.
Right.
But the salary piece seems particularly important, right?
Yes, definitely your team is your most valuable asset.
And that's where this salary to gross profit ratio comes in.
Absolutely.
The source says to aim for somewhere between 55 and 65%.
That's right.
Why that specific range?
Well, if it's above 65%, it could mean a couple of things.
Okay.
You might be underpricing your services and not leaving enough profit margin.
Okay.
Or maybe you have some inefficiencies in your workflow that's eating into your profits.
So it's not just how much you're paying your team, but making sure you're pricing properly.
Exactly.
And then running a tight ship operationally.
Yes.
Okay. And on the flip side, if the ratio is below 55%.
Then it might signal that you're not investing enough in your team.
Okay.
Maybe you're underpaying them, which could lead to burnout, low morale, or even losing them to competitors.
It's all about finding that sweet spot.
It is.
Keeping your team happy and engaged. And of course, making sure the agency is profitable.
Absolutely. A delicate balance, but a crucial one.
Absolutely. All right, so beyond salaries, we also have to consider overheads.
Yeah.
Those costs of running the business itself.
Right. The rent utilities, that fancy coffee machine.
Oh yeah, all that stuff adds up.
It does.
So it's important to make sure we're not lumping those in with salaries when we're analyzing our spending.
Exactly. You want to track overspending in the right categories.
Makes sense. So if I'm seeing my overheads creeping up,
Right.
maybe it's time to renegotiate the lease. Shop around for better internet.
Exactly. Be proactive.
Now, the last piece of the cost puzzle is freelancer costs.
Right.
And that can be a bit of a slippery slope.
It can.
I once hired a freelancer who seemed great,
Yeah.
but the costs just spiraled.
Oh, yeah. I've been there.
Yeah. Painful lesson in setting clear contracts.
Very important.
And managing scope from the beginning.
Absolutely.
So we really got to keep an eye on those freelancer costs. Are we using them strategically? Are we factoring their fees into our project pricing?
All good questions.
So we've tackled income and costs, those two fundamental pillars
The bread and butter.
of financial health. But I'm guessing there's a lot more to the story.
There is.
We've only just scratched the surface.
We have 4 more crucial KPIs to explore.
Okay, I'm ready to dive in.
Awesome.
Let's unpack those next 4 KPIs
Let's do
and see what other financial insights we can uncover.
Awesome. Welcome back. I hope you've had a chance to think about those first 2 KPIs we discussed, income and costs.
Yeah, absolutely. They really are the foundation.
Yeah, the bread and butter of understanding your agency's financial health.
And I'm realizing it's more than just static figures.
Great.
These numbers tell a story about your agency's journey.
That's a really good way to look at it.
They can reveal trends, highlight areas for improvement,
Exactly.
and ultimately empower you to make smarter decisions for your agency's future. Okay, so we laid the foundation with income and costs. Now I'm ready to build on that with this next set of KPIs.
Okay.
What's up next?
Let's talk about EBITDA,
EBITDA.
which stands for earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization.
Okay, I have to admit that one always sounds a bit intimidating.
I know it's a mouthful,
Yeah,
but it's a very valuable metric.
okay.
Think of EBITDA as a way to assess your agency's core operating performance,
Okay.
stripping away things like financing decisions or accounting quirks.
So it's like comparing apples to apples,
Exactly.
even if agencies have different financial structures underneath.
Imagine two agencies. One is funded by venture capital and has a lot of debt, while the other is bootstrapped and debt-free.
Okay.
EBITDA lets you compare their profitability based solely on their operations,
Gotcha.
cutting through the noise of those different financial backgrounds.
So it levels the playing field
Exactly.
and gives you a clear picture of how efficiently an agency is running its core business.
Yes.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Now, closely related to EBITDA is our next KPI, EBIT percentage or operating margin.
Okay, so how does EBIT differ from EBITDA, and what insights does that percentage give us?
Well, EBIT, or earnings before interest and taxes, is very similar to EBITDA.
Okay,
The main difference is that it deducts depreciation and amortization expenses.
got it.
So it's still a measure of profitability from operations, but it factors in those costs related to tangible and intangible assets.
Okay, so a slightly more conservative view of operating profit
Right.
by including those asset-related expenses.
Yes, to calculate EBIT percentage, you simply divide your EBIT by total revenue.
Okay,
The source suggests aiming for a healthy operating margin of around 20%.
20%.
It's a solid benchmark.
Yeah.
Remember, context is key.
So if my operating margin is hovering around 10%,
Yeah.
it might be a sign I need to tighten things up a bit.
Exactly. It could indicate that you need to revisit your pricing strategy, maybe raise rates slightly,
Yeah.
or perhaps there are ways to streamline your workflow and reduce operational costs without sacrificing quality.
And then on the flip side, if I'm consistently hitting like 25% or higher, then I can pat myself on the back and say I'm running a pretty efficient ship.
Absolutely. A consistently strong operating margin is a great indicator that you're managing costs effectively and maximizing your profit potential.
Okay, I'm feeling pretty good about those profitability metrics.
Good.
What's next on our KPI journey?
Let's shift gears and talk about revenue per head, also known as gross profit per head, or revenue per employee.
Okay, revenue per head.
It's a simple but powerful metric that looks at the overall productivity of your team.
Right. It's not just about having a big team. It's about making sure everyone is contributing effectively to the bottom line.
Exactly. To calculate this KPI, you divide your total revenue or gross profit by the number of full-time equivalent employees,
Okay.
including those long-term contractors who are consistently part of the team.
The source mentioned a benchmark of 100,000 pounds gross profit per head. Is that a universal target or does it vary?
It's a good starting point, but you're right. It can definitely fluctuate based on factors like your agency's size, specialization, and location.
Okay.
For example, a high-end branding agency with a small senior team might have a much higher revenue per head than a large digital marketing agency with a more junior staff.
So if my agency's revenue per head is below that benchmark,
Right.
what are some strategies I can use to boost it?
There are a few different approaches you could consider.
Okay.
First, focus on increasing revenue without necessarily expanding your team.
Working smarter, not harder, as they say.
Exactly. It could involve raising your rates strategically, perhaps, for your most in-demand services.
Okay.
Or maybe you can target higher-value clients who are willing to invest more in your expertise.
Okay.
Expanding your service offerings to include more premium packages could also be an option.
Those are great ideas. And what if I've already optimized my revenue streams? What other levers can I pull?
Another avenue is to improve your team's utilization rate.
Okay. Utilization rate.
This means making sure everyone is spending as much time as possible on billable projects and minimizing non-billable tasks.
So fine-tuning those project management processes,
Exactly.
ensuring clear scopes of work, minimizing those time-sucking administrative tasks,
Right.
that can eat into billable hours.
If you've explored those options and you're still seeing a low revenue per head, then you might need to consider adjusting your team size.
Okay, that sounds like a tough conversation to have, but I can see how it might be necessary.
It's definitely not an easy decision,
Yeah.
but sometimes it's the best way to ensure the health and growth of your agency.
Okay.
Now on to our final KPI for this deep dive, recoverability.
Recoverability. Okay. This one's all about making sure you're billing effectively for all the hard work your team is putting in.
It's essentially a measure of how much revenue you're actually capturing compared to what you could be generating if you billed for every available hour.
So the higher the recoverability rate, the better is 100% even possible.
Generally, yes, a higher rate is a good sign. However, aiming for 100% recoverability is usually unrealistic and, frankly, not always desirable.
Okay. I'm intrigued. Why wouldn't we want to bill for every single hour?
There will always be some non-billable time, such as administrative tasks, internal meetings, professional development, or even just taking a well-deserved break.
Right.
Trying to bill for every minute can lead to burnout and resentment, which ultimately hurts your team's productivity and morale.
It's all about finding that sweet spot, right?
Exactly.
Maximizing billable hours while still allowing for those essential non-billable activities that keep the agency running smoothly and your team happy.
Precisely. The key is to find that balance and understand what a realistic and healthy recoverability rate looks like for your specific agency.
So if I'm noticing a dip in my recoverability rate, what are some red flags to watch out for?
One possibility is that you're underutilizing your team.
Okay.
Maybe you have more staff than you need for your current workload, or you're not assigning projects efficiently.
Another possibility is that we're falling into the trap of over-servicing clients.
Yes.
Going above and beyond the agreed-upon scope.
That's a common issue.
Without charging for those additional hours.
It can quickly eat into your profit margins.
Yeah.
You might also be underquoting projects, not accurately estimating the time and resources required to deliver the work.
Okay, so if I'm seeing a low recoverability rate, it's a sign to take a closer look at my project management processes.
Right.
Pricing strategies, maybe even how I'm scoping projects and managing client expectations.
Exactly. It's all about being mindful of those potential pitfalls and having the systems in place to track your time accurately and bill for the value you're delivering.
We've covered a lot of ground here. Income costs, EBITDA, EBIT percentage revenue per head, and recoverability, that's a whole lot of numbers.
It is, but remember, these KPIs are more than just abstract figures.
Right.
They are powerful tools that can help you understand the heartbeat of your agency, identify areas for improvement, and ultimately drive greater profitability and success.
All right, so we've learned about these 6 key financial KPIs. What's the best way to actually use them in a practical way to make positive changes in my agency?
That's a great question, and the perfect segue to the final part of our deep dive.
Ooh, a cliffhanger.
In part 3, we'll take all this knowledge and translate it into actionable strategies you can implement right away to boost your agency's performance.
Stay tuned. The best is yet to come. All right, welcome back. We've been on quite a journey through the world of KPIs.
Yes, income costs, EBITDA, operating margin revenue per head, and recoverability.
It's a lot.
It is.
But now it's time to shift gears.
Yes.
From understanding these metrics to actually using them as tools
Exactly.
to make positive changes in our agency.
Right. It's not enough to just know the numbers.
Right.
We need to know how to actually put them to work.
So let's revisit each KPI
Okay.
and explore some practical strategies we can implement.
Okay, sounds good.
So first up, income or gross profit.
Right.
And remember that crucial split between existing and new business. So let's say I'm seeing a dip in income from those loyal existing clients.
Great.
What's the first step I should take?
Pick up the phone sometimes. All it takes is a friendly check-in to see how they're doing, if their needs have changed, or if there are any opportunities to expand their relationship.
It's like nurturing any relationship, really.
It is.
Consistent communication can go a long way
It can.
in preventing client churn and even opening doors to new projects.
Absolutely. And on the flip side, if new business is sluggish, it might be time to revamp those marketing and sales strategies.
Oh, good point. So asking myself, am I targeting the right audience? Is my messaging hitting the mark?
Yeah.
Is my sales process as smooth as it could be?
Exactly. Those are all great questions to consider.
All right, next up, costs, specifically that salary to gross profit ratio.
Okay.
Remember that sweet spot between 55 and 65%?
Yes.
Let's say my agency is on the higher end.
Okay.
What actions can I take?
Well, it might be time to look for ways to streamline operations and boost efficiency.
Okay, so working smarter, not harder.
Yeah. Exactly. Think about tasks that can be automated,
Whether it's using project management software or exploring other tools that can take repetitive tasks off your team's plate.
Okay.
And don't be afraid to outsource certain functions if it makes sense financially and strategically.
Makes sense. Freeing up your team's time allows them to focus on those high-value activities that truly move the needle.
Exactly.
Okay, now what if my ratio is on the lower end?
Right.
Below 55%, we talked about how that could indicate underpaying my team. Yikes.
Well, investing in your team is one of the best ways to ensure long-term success.
Okay, I'm all ears. What are some ways to invest beyond just salary?
Think professional development opportunities, courses, conferences, workshops, anything that helps them enhance their skills and knowledge.
Okay.
And don't underestimate the power of a supportive and engaging work environment.
Right.
Flexible work arrangements, team building activities, and regular recognition can go a long way in boosting morale and retention.
A happy team is a productive team for sure.
All right, now let's zoom out a bit and revisit those profitability metrics. EBITDA and EBIT percentage.
Okay.
You know, these KPIs offer valuable insights into your agency's overall financial health.
You do?
And sometimes they're the first to signal that something needs adjusting.
Right.
So let's say my margins are looking a little thin.
Okay.
Sounds like it's time to take a hard look at my pricing.
It could be, ask yourself, am I charging what I'm truly worth?
Right.
Make sure you're factoring in all your costs and considering the value you bring to the table.
Sometimes it's as simple as having those tough conversations
Yeah.
about raising rates.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to experiment with different pricing models or package your services in a way that highlights their value.
Oh, okay. And then on the flip side, sometimes it's about trimming expenses.
Right.
Are there any sneaky costs lurking in the shadows that I might be overlooking?
Look for opportunities to negotiate better rates with suppliers or explore ways to optimize your technology stack. Sometimes those small adjustments can add up to significant savings.
Okay, now let's talk about revenue per head. We talked about how this KPI helps you assess the productivity of your team.
Right.
And if it's lower than I'd like, what are some practical steps I can take?
Improving project management processes is a great place to start. Clearly define scopes of work. Realistic deadlines and effective communication are all key ingredients in the recipe for efficient project delivery.
Ooh, I like that analogy.
Yeah.
And you know what I'm realizing? Project management isn't just about keeping projects on track.
No.
It's about maximizing your team's output and ensuring they're spending their time on those high-value activities.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the power of investing in your team's skills and knowledge through ongoing training and development.
Right. A more skilled and confident team will undoubtedly lead to higher productivity and better results.
Absolutely.
Okay, and finally, let's talk about recoverability. I know this one can be a bit of a pain point for agencies.
Yeah.
You know, we're so passionate about our work that sometimes we forget to track our time accurately. So if you're seeing a low recoverability rate, it's often a sign that those time tracking practices need a little tightening up.
Yeah, make sure everyone is diligent about logging their hours and have a system in place that makes it easy to capture all billable time.
Exactly. And a good project management tool can be a lifesaver here,
It can.
allowing you to track time expenses and progress all in one place.
Oh, one.
And let's not forget about scope creep.
Oh, scope creep, the silent killer of profitability.
How do we tame that beast?
Clear communication and well-defined scopes of work are your best weapons. Be upfront with clients about what's included in the project and have a process in place for managing changes and additions.
And don't be shy about having those sometimes awkward conversations about additional fees if the scope starts expanding beyond the initial agreement.
Exactly. Transparency and open communication are essential for maintaining strong client relationships and ensuring your agency is fairly compensated for the value it delivers.
So we've come full circle on our KPI journey,
We have.
learned how to decode these financial metrics. And more importantly, how to use them as a roadmap to drive positive change in our agencies.
Right. These KPIs are not just about crunching numbers. They're about gaining a deeper understanding of your agency's strengths and weaknesses, identifying opportunities for growth, and making strategic decisions that move your business forward.
It's like having a financial GPS guiding us toward a more profitable and successful future.
That's a great way to look at it. And remember, the journey doesn't end here.
Right.
Keep learning, keep exploring, and keep using these KPIs to chart a course towards achieving your agency's goals.
This has been such a great deep dive. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise.
My pleasure.
And to all our listeners out there, thank you for tuning in. We hope you've gained some valuable insight